and this is BBC1.
Hello and good morning. OK, you've been alone in your house sometimes, haven't you? When you have you ever panicked after hearing a strange noise, particularly if it's in the middle of the night? Maybe you were positive that you left your handbag on the kitchen table and then found that it had been moved in the morning. Or have you woken up in the night to see this tall, dark figure at the end of the bed? Did you panic or get excited? Could it have been a ghost? And if it was a ghost, could it have harmed you? Do you think ghosts are harmful, Aisha?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Why?
No. I lived there for about a year and nothing happened, and then things started to happen. My daughter was pushed off the table in the dining room. She pulled the chair out across to the other side of the room, and then she climbed on to the table and she went flying off it and hit her head on that chair that she'd moved. And straight away she was screaming, saying, "Move the lady, move the lady." And when we used to be going to sleep, you could feel hands...
Hang on, what lady?
Well, obviously, like the ghost, she was saying to me, "Move the lady."
But that could have been her fantasising about some... Because kids do that. How old was she?
Well, she was only 2, but she's very forward. She's very
But
bright.
could she have been playing games with herself and imagining there's a...
No, things happened before that. This isn't from the beginning. We're talking about harmful, so... things happened before that, and when you'd be going to sleep, you could feel it grab your neck, and you'd sort of like wake up choking. It would happen every night, and then just before I moved, it started happening to my daughter as well, my oldest one, and then she started choking. But I did get into contact with people before me who lived there before me, and they had problems as well. And as they were going to sleep, their neck, same thing happened to them. And my daughter was playing with a little boy. There's also a little boy in there. She was playing with him. And, you know, I had another daughter then, a baby, and the cot mobiles would start going off in the night, and you'd hear all the toys being played with and everything. And it's always nice and tidy when you get up in the morning, but, they were playing with things.
So when you heard the things being played with, did you get up and go and have a look what was happening? Why?
No way.
What am I? What, you were scared?
Yeah.
Oh, so you left your daughter on her own?
No.
Well, hang on, you've got the toys being played with in her room, you were scared to go...
She was in my room.
Oh, right.
But I could hear the toys. It was only a flat, and I could hear the toys from the front room.
No, I don't agree. Not really. No.
What?
Don't think ghosts are really... I think what you had was a poltergeist, which is different to an actual ghost.
Is it different?
It's still
a ghost. What's the difference?
Well, the poltergeist is basically evil. Or it's what it's
evil.
Right.
Oh, not necessarily.
So it's an evil ghost. An evil ghost.
But it's still the same sort of thing. It's still
mischievous. Hang on. So he was a naughty ghost.
Yes.
Not an evil ghost.
No.
How do you know when it's evil and naughty?
Well, when it does what?
So
if it just comes and it's just there and you believe it's your...
So he was just a mischievous?
Yes.
Well, he put their hand round the necks, though.
Well, no, it wasn't. I had a clergyman out in the end, and one of the spare bedrooms started to smell of like an eggy smell after loads of things happened.
Eggy smell?
It smelled disgusting.
Bad eggy or fresh eggy?
Bad. really bad.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference, isn't there?
Yeah,
fried or
really
boiled?
Bad.
I want to get this picture.
I think.
What?
About a month old, I think.
Oh,
it was disgusting.
Bad.
And the clergyman told me to get out then because it's a bad sign. So I told him of everything that had happened, and then he said he needed backup, so he got another priest, and he went round there, and he could feel it very strongly, and he was shouting around the rooms and everything, but that didn't even make it go, and he told me that it might not go, because it's something evil and the place is possessed.
Did he
No,
say
I believe it's to do with there could be a lot of
sorry, Neil, hang on.
He
Sorry,
just
go on.
said
There's a lot of emotional things involved with this because sometimes the emotions of the people who live in the house or before create an atmosphere and a vibration which can create this kind of energy.
Robert, may I say, when we first moved into our house about 14 years ago, my son then was only 5 years old. We didn't know very much about the house. We'd bought it from some friends, and my husband was working away. My son, who's only, as I say, wasn't actually quite 5 yet, he hadn't started school, came into my bedroom time and time again saying, "Mummy, the little girl comes into my room and tells me not to play with the man in the shop round the corner." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because he's a very, very bad man." Well, about 3 months later, I found out I didn't know that the man who had the shop around the corner was a paedophile and had murdered the child who was 12 years old, I believe, at the time, from our home. And I didn't know anything about it, so how could my son, preschool son, have known about that?
I couldn't have heard it gossip.
No, impossible.
Yeah.
I think this is a kind of a warning. Maybe somebody who'd passed on had come back to warn my son, even though the man had been arrested
So this is
and
a
imprisoned.
good ghost.
Yeah.
It's a
Very
good
sweet
ghost.
child.
But you can
Why
get,
do you get good ghosts and rotten ghosts or mischievous
I
ghosts?
think it depends on the personality, the way they are, their
Oh, so
fears.
she's got some kind of personality that draws the evil
No,
ghosts.
no. There's the house would have had people that lived in the house. There could be a lot of other vibrations in the house, but also if there's any anxiety or worries there, that would create an atmosphere that can cause poltergeist activity.
Oh, so it's her fault, like?
No. But that,
Well, what do you mean? You said it's her personality, vibrations.
Yeah, but it depends on.
She's
if she
drawing a
matches-
certain kind of ghost towards her.
No, she's drawing the attraction of somebody with similar, who lived in that house possibly, who had similar emotions, trying to get through to you, trying to talk to you in some way, trying to communicate.
Because they've got for a poltergeist to get through, they've got to come through a person. A person is like a dynamo, and they come through that person.
Yeah.
If I may just add to this, I heartily agree with what you say. A lot of it is down to the emotion of the person. I was told a story on Sunday evening by quite a reputable author, and this sort of bears it out. He told me that there was a lady who was in a really bad state. She found she had cancer, and she had to have one breast off, and as a result of that, all sort of double ornaments or whatever, this entity, whatever it was, went around and smashed up one of every pair. Eventually she had to have the second breast off, and everything else that was appertaining to the first one was all smashed up. And I think where poltergeists are concerned, the truth is we don't really know
Why would
what
they do
they
that?
are.
No.
Why would he do that?
Can I just make a
Mm,
point?
certainly.
I think we have to be very careful when we're actually talking about people who are living and the idea that they can be possessed. I think we have to be extremely careful about this, particularly in the light of the Anna Climby case and what happened there. The idea that people somehow attract evil spirits, it is utter nonsense, it is irrational, and it is dangerous.
It's you. It was. She's pointing the finger at you. It's you. You can't. And you're saying such a nonsense. You agree with her,
No,
but
I
it
don't
was you that
believe in
implied
evil.
it. And
No,
you
I
did.
don't believe in evil. What I'm saying is...
Well, hang on. She's got evil. She said it was evil.
Well, you see, people's interpretation of evil is maybe different from what mine is, but I believe there's all good everywhere, but it's a person's belief, what their fear was. If they have a big fear, the fear attracts fear, and fear can seem to somebody who's scared of the energy around them, like, and can be taken on as evil. Because people
That sounds like a load of nonsense to me. Turn round.
I'm sorry, you said earlier on I couldn't use my favourite word. So
No, you can't. You can't use that word.
I've had to use bunkum. Now, I'm going to answer both your questions. I'm a practising medium. I was born with the gift.
So am I.
And, yeah, but you obviously have misread
You've
a
missed
few things.
something.
He's the guy I want to work with.
Who?
I've seen all your programmes. They're brilliant.
Thank you. What, me?
Sorry.
I knew you didn't mean me.
Sorry.
Go on.
We're not on the...
Go on.
Anyway.
What do you mean we're not on?
The young lady over there. I've noticed people using the word poltergeist. Now, poltergeist has never, ever yet been attributed to anyone in spirit. I'm not going to use the word ghost because it's a word I hate.
It goes so wrong, I don't know.
Spirits.
Poltergeists have never been attributed to anyone in spirit. They are usually only associated with people with children, teenagers usually, who have a disturbed background, parents, families, school, something like that, and somehow or the other, they can make themselves move objects, or do a lot of disruptive things.
You believe all this?
I know it.
I think this is a total rubbish. I think this is total nonsense. I mean, there's no such thing. Let me just say it, because you have said yours.
I haven't finished. You haven't started.
I think that's total rubbish anyway if you don't even finish that. There's no such thing called ghost. There's no such thing called spirit. There's no such thing called a medium. Doesn't matter if you mean India.
You know where he comes from.
The point I'm taking is that
He comes from Kingston upon Thames.
The point I'm making is, I think, is very important, the way actually we have been brought up. It's all conditioning. The people who are saying it's a total conditioning. The people like you, you are exploiting the other victims. You are very innocent people, and people like you are making money.
We'll come back to that. We'll come back to it. I'm going to come back to you in a minute. So do you go along with all this, David? Do you think these believers are deluded then?
Well, I can't believe that some seemingly rational people can actually believe this stuff at all.
Why?
Well,
why?
Complete rubbish.
Why do you think it's complete rubbish, David?
Well,
Hang on, David. David, you're talking
any beliefs.
David,
why do you think it's rubbish,
Sorry?
David? Why do you think it's rubbish? Why do you think we're deluded? 75% of the population is deluded.
75% believe in ghosts?
Yes, I would say so.
Well, I don't know where you get a figure like that. I figure came from. I'm bound down to your superior knowledge.
Do you believe in them then?
I do, yes.
Why?
Why do I believe in them? Because I've had an experience.
What
and
is
I've interviewed at least 100 people.
This is for
and
your
not
book, for your
all
book.
of those people are deluded lunatics or deluded stupid
What's your
people.
Explain it
experience
from another way, perhaps. You couldn't explain your
Well,
experience
give us
from
you
another
can,
way.
yes.
Give us your
First,
experience. Give us
My
your
experience?
Yeah.
Well, I live in a
you
flat in a
explain it.
turn-of-the-century house in Oxfordshire, and I woke up one night and I had an extremely cold draft. It was a frigid draft, like a fridge door was thrown open, went down my body, and if it had just been that, I'd have said, OK, maybe it was a draft. Perhaps it was a paranormal experience. Perhaps. But immediately after that, the Cocker Spaniel that lives in the house with me, Frodo, went completely mad, and he ran off through the house as if he was chasing an intruder. And at that time, I really thought I was being robbed. And I was wondering what the hell am I going to do when I meet this intruder?
David?
I got out of bed, went through the house, and there was nothing. But
It's
the
the
dog
same
wasn't
as
there.
the same as mine.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of things that we have to bear in mind
this.
when people are talking about these kinds of experiences, and I wouldn't want to comment on particular individual ones that are talked about here. I think we can all agree
Well,
that
that's what
probably...
you've got to talk about. That's the most important one. Here he is, coming up with his personal anecdotal evidence. Is there a rational explanation for this?
We'd need to actually go into his house and examine it to find out, really what's going on, if anything. What we can say, and I think probably what we can all agree, is that some claims are no doubt bogus of this sort.
Oh, yeah.
In other instances,
What, you
I'm
mean
sure
that means
that...
some claims aren't bogus?
Well,
So
I
you're
think
saying
it's a
ghosts
matter
exist?
of interpretation.
You're saying ghosts
essentially.
exist?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that people see things, maybe feel things, but what they think they're seeing or feeling is not necessarily out there. It doesn't mean they're mad.
They're deluded.
It doesn't... Well, that's a slightly loaded term.
Well, what's
That's
the
a
better
slightly
expression?
loaded
That's a
term.
very...
Hang on.
Sorry.
No, because you're deluded. It is, isn't it? Well, he didn't want to say you're mad, and that's fair enough, because
What
you're
we're
not
finding
mad,
out
are you? No, I'm sitting next to her. She's not. Well, not yet she isn't, nor you, but you might be deluded under a delusion. That's a perfectly nice thing to be. It's a good different...
Why would I be deluded? Why would I wake up?
Okay, a better word, mistaken.
It's
a mistake.
quite possible.
Yeah.
There's a possibility I could be mistaken. I don't believe I was, because I know there's a certain commonality of experience that people have with paranormal experiences. That's a very typical experience you have there. And significantly,
Well,
you said, yes, Aisha's experience, it was in a fairly modern house.
What we're
wasn't it?
increasingly finding out in psychology, basically, is that the way we experience the world, we're not passive recipients of information. The brain is actually putting interpretations on things. It's actually making guesses in some instances. For example, everybody in this room here has a blind spot in their visual fields, but we're not aware of it because the brain makes guesses about what it expects to see. It actually fills in the gaps. And so what happens with everyday events, for example, is that we see things, we place an interpretation on them. Usually it's probably correct. In other instances it may not be. And we certainly know, for example, that certain people who have partial blindness, for instance, because of cataract or glaucoma...
basically, I'm going to get into trouble because basically what you're saying is a malfunction of the brain.
Possibly.
He doesn't like deluded, but he'll go with malfunction of the brain. What he's saying is your perception's incorrect. Your brain is actually reading the wrong messages and making the wrong diagnosis.
Yes.
That's what you were saying, wasn't it, David? Yeah, you misdiagnosis.
Yes, I mean, I don't understand what this kind of phenomenon is, but all I know in my particular case is that I experienced something, I experienced it many times, and I was a complete and utter sceptic until this happened. I did not believe in this kind of activity, whatever it may be. And when I experienced it myself, it was
what happened?
Well, what happened was it all started. It was a long time ago. I went to bed one night, woke up in the early hours of the morning, very loud scratching noises coming from the back of the dressing table in the bedroom.
Mice.
Well, it was very, very loud. And
bats.
Rats. Maybe we had bats and we didn't know rats. But anyway, I was very, very frightened. I went downstairs and I thought, I can't go into that room again. I really was frightened. And I thought, what can I do? How can I overcome this? So I thought, I'll take a tape recorder to bed with me. So I took a tape recorder and I thought, well, if I take a tape recorder, this will not happen again. If it does happen again, at least I can tell someone about it without feeling stupid. So I went back to bed. Anyway, it happened. And I was living with my parents at the time. The following morning, I got up, I was talking to my mother, and I said, I didn't know how to explain this, I didn't know, because I felt a fool, basically. And I was starting to tell her about it, and she preempted me and actually told me that we've got a ghost, haven't we? And I said yes, and I was absolutely staggered, because she had experienced it in a slightly different manner, and my father had as well. She was in the kitchen, and the actual dog, assuming that's what it was brushing around her legs. There was a dog smell. The actual dog, we don't know, obviously, but we think the next door neighbours had a dog. It used to come around our house every day. We used to feed it, look after it, etc. It died, and it was a coincidence.
This is Shep, not Shep, is it Shep?
Bryn.
Bryn.
It's a Welsh name, I think.
Good Welsh name, yeah.
I'll take your word for it. But
did you ever actually see this
So hang on, no, but we got the sound.
Oh, right.
Do you want to hear the sound? Oh, right, yeah. He's interested in the sound.
Oh, yes.
Let's play this Bryn.
That was basically in the bathroom. That was the very last time. It was the scratching noises from the skirting board.
This wasn't your mother snoring?
No. We were both stood in there actually that morning, listening to it.
What are you laughing for? No, you
your jokes, I think. The quality of your joke.
Never mind that. You're going to be in trouble now. So here's the rationalist. This is the man of science. This is the psychologist. You took it to him.
Yeah, yes.
And you swallowed it up line and sinker too, didn't you?
It goes with the story, of course. Now, I'm interested in stories. I do listen to ghost stories, and I do subject them to a degree of, I suppose, detached scepticism. Yeah. As a psychologist, I'd like to sort of stand well away from these sorts of things and investigate them as stories. I think this is the cases that I've been dealing with. I know imagination plays a part. I know family dynamics can explain away lots of other phenomena. But this, I'm not too sure of this. I'm open-minded about this.
Did you check the tape recording at all? You know, see if it was a fake or anything on the tape recording. You know, listen hard.
Please excuse me. Bev took the tapes.
I took the tape. It could very easily have been a fake. It could very easily have been a. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I meant the psychologist. Did you sort of?
You took it on trust. The tape. Let's assume he could have been playing a practical joke on you or anybody else. He could be a total fraudster. But you, no. Of course you could, Bev. But there's no way you could verify the tape. You've taken it on trust.
Yes, I'm sort of 98%. I didn't take the tape, so I'm 98% certain that this is
It'd
a
have been
genuine
much
story.
better if it was a VCR, really, wouldn't it? You know.
Robert,
Well, it actually was not. There's no visual thing.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah.
It was just sound. I actually tried. I did try. I did point at the time. I wish this dog would have kept. If that's what it was, whatever it was, would have kept occurring. Because all I want to do is understand it. Not that I'm capable of it necessarily, but that's my sole interest.
Well, that sound could have been anything. It sounded to me like the sound you'd get if you just scratched your fingernail over the top of that microphone.
That's right. I could so easily have done it, but then.
Excuse me.
That's what I was saying about
These
it.
noises were taken from 6 inches above a skirting board, with no apparent presence there.
How do you know
Sorry, the actual interesting thing is,
behind the skirting?
There is one thing that I couldn't actually explain. Well, I can't explain about this at all. But one of the things was, okay, let's say you scratch a skirting board. What are you doing? You're vibrating the surface. Those vibrations will travel through a wall, and if you put your ear against the wall, you'll hear the vibrations via the wall. They're in effect amplified. In effect.
They're actually attenuated, but never.
Well, you see what I mean? Amplified in the sense that you put your ear against the wall, and your ear is closer to the actual source of the vibration via the wall, so it sounds louder, is what I'm saying. But basically, in this particular instance, I stood above where these scratching noises were occurring. I pushed my ear to the wall, and I actually couldn't hear any vibrations through the wall. Which it doesn't make sense even saying it, but I mean that's the truth.
What about the floor? Did you put your ear to the floor at all?
You said
it
you
was
were hearing
very
before.
loud.
It was very loud with your ear. It was very loud with the tape recorder.
Oh, it was incredibly
So which
loud.
one couldn't you hear?
Oh, sorry, I meant I couldn't hear any vibration through the wall.
You think what, Aisha? Aisha, go on.
I think that he'd know if something's there or not. I mean, this man
But we're
doesn't
taking
believe
him on
in it.
trust,
but
aren't we? We're taking
this
him
man
on
doesn't
trust.
believe it in it at the end of the day. But there's explanations for everything. A lot of things happen to me.
Oh, there's explanations for everything. So there could be an explanation for all what happened to you then?
No, I mean, there isn't explanations.
There isn't?
Is there an explanation for everything that happened to me? You know, I mean, when it first started happening...
There might well be an explanation here in terms of, if you listen to your story, you talked about being choked, I mean, pressed back in bed. Is that right? That were elements of the story. That's a condition called sleep paralysis, I gather. I'm not saying you suffered from sleep paralysis.
No, I know, I felt her. I mean, it's not just me. The person who lived there before me had the same problem. When she was going to sleep, me and my daughter had the same problem. And you can feel it, and then you wake up sort of choking. And then as you're going to sleep, it happened again, twice every night. And then it started happening to my daughter.
Excuse me, it is a medical condition called sleep paralysis.
Was there a breath on your face, sort of like this, if somebody was with you?
No, not really. You just feel the hands. You're like, sort of choking.
Well, hers was a harmless ghost.
Yeah, but
I was going to say Mary Rose. Rosemary. Rosemary.
You got it.
Can they be of benefit?
Well, we think so. Whether it's a ghost that inhabited our house until about a month ago, I don't know. We said it was some kind of presence. It appeared in the form of a monk, at least. I saw it 5 times, and my brain said monk.
And you took a photograph of this?
No. I've taken photographs.
We're showing it now.
Have...
Watch this then. Where the ring is the monk, yeah? Let's bring it quite closer, Joe. Come on.
These stains. We believe that's a monk. Yeah. We believe that it was a Welsh monk that was inhabiting our house. At least that's how we thought of it.
And you saw him like that? You took that photograph?
No, can I
explain
a minute,
it to us?
please? It first started about 4 years ago. We were aware that there seemed to be a presence, and it seemed to be a monk. And I have seen it 5 times. But I'm totally happy for people to say I'm totally deluded, because that gentleman there said you
tell us what happened first. Then we'll tell you you're deluded.
Hang on. We became aware of stains on the walls of the house, and they were in Welsh. We're not Welsh speaking. We live in a Welsh farmhouse.
There were hieroglyphics or words, whatever.
You got them. There were words, and it was a brown stain at first. And the first word was Tangnefydd, which means peace, and it's a religious word. And
we're looking at
then
them now.
I think that was January 1999, and by the end of January the whole wall had erupted in different Welsh words.
So is it still there?
A lot of the stains have disappeared, but then we got carvings as well. One minute the carving wouldn't be there, then the carving would be there.
Is it the original wall?
Yes, well, we had stone. If you noticed on the picture that was shown, that was the stone fireplace, and these carvings have appeared on that. Obviously, we thought there was hoax. That was the very first thing we thought of.
I was thinking
And-
you could have, if you look behind the wall. Or
That's true. We wondered if things were seeping through. Well, one would, because we're not, you know, our immediate thought wouldn't be something
Did the
supernatural.
monks, were there monks inhabiting the property?
We've tried to.
sometimes?
We've looked into this. I think there were possibly monks in the area, and it is possible that they did because one of the some of the words we had would indicate that there was a pilgrimage from Shrewsbury. We had the Welsh word for Shrewsbury, the Welsh word for Tryffinon, which means Holywell, because they've got St Winifred's bones there, and the Welsh word for pilgrimage appeared on the wall with an arrow.
But these disappeared.
Those have disappeared. There are some that are still on the wall to this day. And
But this doesn't mean a ghost, does it? This is
No,
just
no,
stuff appearing.
Yes, but we had actually seen. I've actually seen this monk as well.
How did he manifest himself?
I just fleetingly I saw a figure. It was a flesh and blood figure. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't what I would think of a ghost. I think when you think of a ghost, you think of a white sheet, don't you? I think a lot of people do. We can see through it. Nothing like
Flesh
that.
and
It was a flesh and blood figure which I saw for seconds, or a second, and my brain said monk. But as I say, I could have been deluded. I've seen it 5 times.
I saw.
And
one in my house.
my son, John Paul, has Down syndrome. He is now 16, and for the last 4 years he has claimed to have seen the monk in his bedroom. It's all very friendly. Nothing has been frightening about this at all.
So you believe it's there, and you
I
find
don't
it.
know.
But you're happy.
That's the
You're
odd
happy
thing.
for it to be there.
Yes, I was happy, but the monk has now disappeared. My son said 5 weeks ago, he said, Brother Adolphus, Brother Dolly is the name we just gave to the monk. He said, Mummy, Brother Dolly's going now. And I said, well, why is he going? He said, because I'm going to be 16, I'm too old, and the monk was going to a happy, smiling place.
Father's one of yours. Is he one of yours?
Obviously one of ours.
Is he one of yours? Comes and goes, does he?
Yeah, he comes and goes.
Well, what do you reckon's going on here then?
And since the 6th of March, my son's 16th birthday, before that, we had almost daily activity. We haven't had any activity.
Well, one of the most interesting parallels.
Hang on, Lionel. Go on. Sorry, Lionel.
Yep. Okay.
Sorry.
One of the most interesting parallels. There was a case I investigated in Cardiff a while back, where if it was a paranormal activity of some sort, it was when you said the objects were moving around, Rosemary. In the case that I investigated, the family were telling me in good faith that shoes were turning up in the fridge and that food from the fridge was turning up in the wardrobe, and there was no apparent reason. They were keeping an eye on it as closely as they could, but I was reminded of that case when I was listening to the idea of the carvings moving and the stains coming and going. There are other cases in the literature
So
where
what
that
you're
happens.
saying, this is something that's going on?
I think this could well be something that is a genuine paranormal experience. Yeah.
I do. Well, I mean, I don't speak for everybody, but I do believe that everybody has their own opinion about spirits or whatever you want to call them. But my first experience of a spirit was when I was a very young child, of about 5, and at that time I was asleep and my bed faced a mirror, and I woke up with the sensation of somebody pulling on my feet as if they were sitting on the bed. But I could see myself through the mirror, and I could see my feet being bent down. But in between that, I could also see a shape of a man who was wearing a long trench coat and a trilby hat. And this gentleman has been with me and appeared to me many times. Now, I was a very young child at this time, and at times of trouble, he has appeared with me and been there.
Well, as a comfort.
As a comfort, and he's always said to him, I'll say to him, why are you here? And he'll say to me, there's something you've got to, get out. You're nervous about something, you'll understand. And sometimes I wouldn't necessarily understand what that is, but he will say, you are. And after a few days, he will disappear. And once I've gone through everything.
What do you make of this?
I'm very interested in this, actually.
We're all interested.
Yes.
But do you believe her?
I think maybe could this be a sort of personification of a part of yourself, of a part of your consciousness and your...
I wouldn't believe so, because there's other things that have happened, other people, and the person that seems to come to me now is my nana, and my nana's been with me recently with her brother, And by that I mean.
Were you
that-
having parties in your house or something?
Yes.
Paranormal parties. Paranormal parties.
Is that what that lady's just been saying now? Let me interrupt you a minute.
Sorry.
No, let her finish in, Nana.
Go on then, Karen.
With my nana, my nana was very close to her brother all the way through her life, and just recently, things were going missing, and they'd find them somewhere else in the house, and there was no malice or anything in it. It was just mischief. I could just feel this mischief all around me, and I said to my mum, you know, who in our family has mischief in them? And I said, but it's got to be on this side, because I could smell my nana's perfume. And when I said I could smell my nana's perfume, it was a distinct smell. Not many people wear this particular perfume, and it was there all the time. But there was this mischief about it as well. And Mum said to me, it would be Uncle Bob.
Was it playful or malevolent?
Yes,
In the
very
kitchen?
playful. Yeah.
Would do that to us.
Yeah.
Do you know, for a minute he thought he'd pulled. You should have seen the expression on his face.
One night, three of us were in the kitchen. We were all doing different jobs. We were all doing different jobs, and each and every one of us experienced a strange, what's her name? You know, something
Just a stick
or
fully
pulled my
pushing you
daughter's
like that.
hair or what have you. That's a mischief part. But can I pick up on what someone said over there very early on in the programme about people being deluded? How is it that a young child can be deluded? My first experience was when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I was stood in a bungalow, and I was stood in the middle here. There were rooms going off at both ends, this side and that side down there as well. And I stood, my parents were in one of the rooms with the couple that they had gone to see. And I moved from this side of the bungalow into that side, and I looked down to the bottom end and I said, "Where's the man?" And they said, "What man?" And at that point, the parents said, "Right, come on, we're going now." And nothing more was ever spoken about it at all. But that man appeared to me, I saw him walk from one side of the corridor across to the other side. So I expected him to be in the other side of the room.
So you're a believer?
No, I'm not a believer. All I could say... The thing is that was just the first of many experiences, and there have been so many smells, sounds, sights.
That came about at the age of 5 or 6.
Yeah.
That's when your imagination is most variable.
Is that what it is? Imagination? Is it people's imagination?
No.
Hang on, my lord.
I went round for most of last year investigating for a book, Haunted Britain Island, and went round to close on 1,200 locations. And one thing that became clear to me when I would interview people, talk to people, and I did it in the best locations. I mean, this time last year, during all that snow, I was in old inns, old taverns, out on the Yorkshire moors. You will never convince people, as I say, it divides into two distinct categories, people who do believe, people who don't believe. You will never convince someone who's had an experience that experience wasn't real. Likewise, someone who hasn't had the experience, you will not convince them that the experience that they had is real. It's an argumentative process. It comes down to the delusional bit, though.
I've had these experiences.
Onto the delusional bit, though, which was the most intriguing thing I found from all the researchers, particularly in Ireland. There's always this idea of to see a ghost makes you that little bit eccentric. And a lot of people were afraid to talk to me. Special, but a lot of people think, I won't say anything because people will think I'm an eccentric. And in Ireland, time and time again, particularly from the third-hand accounts I got, was, and do you know, he was stone cold sober at the time.
There's an awful lot for cheese right there.
Well, this is it. I mean,
have you had any
Castle.
experiences at all yourself?
I personally, I have to confess, I've had places where I've had a feeling that there's something not there, but I wouldn't put it down to an actual experience. I mean, as I say, I've spoken to so many people who have, and when you look at how they're recollecting, it is definitely coming from memory. It's not being made up the art of recollection.
You've had experience, haven't you?
Well, yes, I have. I'm a member of the Ghost Club. I've written a book on ghosts. I'm a ghost guide in Guildford in Surrey.
The what? Ghost guide?
Yeah. It's one of those ones you dress up in stupid costumes and walk around telling people a load of blarney and they believe it. No, it's not true. It's all real. No,
jump out and say, ah.
I think all these experiences that we're talking about people having of ghosts, without wanting to be too rude, I think a lot of people need to wake up and smell the coffee on this one. That it's not just a case of ghosts exist or they don't. I have a personal theory that ghosts are real, but they're not necessarily what people think they are.
Yes, true.
Now, of course, that doesn't mean if you've seen something, then it's really a ghost. It's from beyond the spirit world, and I'm terrified of offending Lionel here because he's a legend and a hero of mine. But I do think all ghosts are scientific, but the problem we have these days is that science isn't yet at the stage in history where we can explain everything.
No.
Well...
No, don't you take my microphone, woman. Didn't I tell you it's always a woman that takes the microphone?
It does seem to me, I would agree with this gentleman, that we as human beings have tremendous imaginations, wonderful imaginations, and I think all the things that these people have said tonight, they are marvellous. But I believe they are a product of the human brain and the human imagination. And
Hang on, my love, please, Lionel.
Could I just come in quickly on that one with one very interesting experiment that was conducted in Canada, in Toronto, by the Canadian Psychical Research Society. They wrote a story about a non-existent character called Philip, who had lived during the Cromwellian period, and they made up a tragic story about him. They then concentrated on him, and he came in, he responded with knocks. When enough of them were there and concentrating on him, the phenomenon was there.
Could we get him now?
Yeah. Well, we could fly them in from Toronto, but the general...
ghosts can travel fast,
course,
through the ether.
And the general...
You're not believing all this mumbo-jumbo.
The conclusion... it was done in a scientifically.
It was a scientific experiment. I remember it.
And I think a number of us who are into the psychic literature will remember the case because it was done as an open-minded experiment, and they did seem to rather support that at least some spirits.
Is that a ghost? That's a $64,000 question. We should be able to bring one here now. My experience.
Can't put ectoplasm in the box.
Go on. Shut up, you lot. Behave yourselves. Hang on a minute. Go on. Please. Please. Move, my love, please. Go on.
My experience was in an office I worked in a Georgian building in Leamington Spa, and this, whatever it was, used to throw things at us, and it would put pins on my chair and pins in between my, drawing pins in between my...
What would it want to do that for?
I have no idea.
Why do you think?
We don't know. We thought it was perhaps a woman because it wouldn't do anything to the men. It just used to do things to the women. If the women went into the loo, the whole of the loo, the cistern, everything would just shake. And one evening, my boss was at home, and he was a solicitor. I was PA to a solicitor, so we were in a respectable office. He had a telephone call from the police. Could he please go to his office? He was key holder. There was a disturbance. When he got there, he went in with the police, and the police said, we've had reports from the cleaners next door, which was the council building, and they said that the cleaners had reported a disturbance in the office. They thought someone was being murdered. And when the police went in with my boss, the place was perfectly calm, perfectly still. Nothing had been disturbed.
But somebody thought someone had been, something had been there.
And one day I'd locked myself out, and I was sat on the stairs waiting to go into my office, and I felt a presence come down past me and walk through the wall. And I was standing there a bit taken aback, and the architects who owned the building and had refurbished it were upstairs, and one of them came down, and he said, what's the matter? And I said, well, I think I'm going mad, but I've just felt something come down, go past me and go through the wall. And he said, well, where you've said they've gone through the wall, there was a doorway there years ago.
Is this the kind of thing that's happening in your cottage, Tim?
I bought a haunted cottage. I bought it without actually knowing I was buying a haunted cottage. I bought it at auction, and I find the comments about belief quite interesting, in that my father was helping me search for a cottage to buy. My father died prior to the auction, about 2 or 3 weeks prior. As my father was an architect, surveyor, he was looking with me in a very orderly manner and had written out a specification, the dream specification of a cottage. The type of facilities are very detailed, the strange thing was for me, and the strange thing is since I went to the auction not knowing the cottage was haunted. It was an impulse buy. I'd seen it on a Monday. The auction was Tuesday, the next day. It felt right. The buying that cottage felt right. It was only afterwards, after I purchased the cottage, because an auction is binding, you know, the hammer falls. It was only then I heard the story, this story about it being haunted. Horrific story, quite a well publicised story. It was only then I started to piece my own personal story, my own input, because I find I can't talk about other people's experiences. But I have got the notes my father made of the dream cottage, including the fact it should have a point of special interest. These notes are so detailed it should be by Ashbourne. Ashbourne's a Derbyshire market town. The cottage is by Ashbourne. It should be stone-built, detached, south-facing garden, with a workshop, with 2 workshops, with points of special interest. And it turns out the cottage I bought, I now know there's a hotel at the cottage sits on a hill. There's a hotel at the bottom, which is the first hotel, the first place my parents ever stayed at in 1948. When I came back to Finchley after buying the cottage, a friend, a close Christian friend of ours, phoned to say that she had booked a week's leave, her husband and her. She, being a friend, had prayed through the book, chosen a place, and that place was adjacent to the hotel which my parents had stopped at. So within that short period, these factors came through. And since having this cottage, it's been the scene of the most greatest blessings.
But it's haunted, your cottage?
It's haunted.
Who's it haunted by?
Horrific story, which is the previous owner's story. A long, difficult, horrible story.
Make it short and nice.
It's horrid. It is
but
horrid.
briefly.
They had almost everything you could have. Water running down walls, cold spots, hot spots, visitations.
And have you still got all that now?
I've had some. I had some shortly after I bought it.
What did you have?
I had water running down the walls. I had a lot of...
It's an old cottage, Tim. That's what happens.
Yeah, not on an inside wall.
Yeah, it does. Water gets everywhere, doesn't it?
I understand.
I've got this today. We've got water coming down the inside. We can't find where it's coming from. But it's probably coming from, 100 yards away.
So the point, I could show you an inside wall, not near a roof.
Okay, running water,
plumbing,
what else?
Running water. I had a whole sequence of peculiar electrical problems. The first range of problems was sort of electrical. It was teasing. It wasn't horrid, it was teasing, it was stupid. Since then, it's as if this house, this cottage, has a sort of character. I can actually believe a building can take on character. And now I find the cottage a blessed place.
Why?
It feels different.
Does yours feel different? Does yours is a blessed place?
We have a pub in Hereford and we believe there's a ghost there. It's a friendly sort of ghost. It is a little bit mischievous in the way that it switches gas bottles off, etc. But we don't feel that it's anyway...
It's made your pub famous?
Sort of, yes.
It's great PR. Does it draw people in?
Sometimes. It's mainly a locals pub, but it does bring people in.
And what does it do? It turns taps on and off?
Yeah, gas bottles, etc.
Are you going along with this?
Yes. Well, it's interesting, like people said, that you imagine things. When we first moved in, everybody said to us, yes, there's a ghost there, there's a ghost. And you think, no, they're just joking, whatever. And then one day we walked from upstairs, you got to walk through the pool room into our kitchen. And as we walked through, you feel as if somebody is chasing after you. And that's like it all the time. I thought, no, it's just the cold air. It's just my imagination. And then the one day we were there, and we were changing the lines, cleaning them. And as we changed them, we pulled the water through, and it all stopped. We thought, well, it shouldn't. We went in the cellar, and all the gas had been turned off.
Physically
turned off. It was at the end of the night, when there was no customers there. There was no, because we can't do it when there's customers there.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's going to be more people in the pub tomorrow, so you'll be happier then. I did actually just want to respond to something.
I come up to the time. So you think this is a practical joker? You don't think it's a ghost?
I think, you know, probably we could treat it with some degree of scepticism.
Would you? What do you believe in?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Yes, I do, because I've had a similar experience. I work in a castle which is 900 years old in Tamworth, and it's famous for its ghost.
Tamworth Castle?
Tamworth Castle. It has a white lady and a black lady. The black lady was St. Editha. She was a Saxon princess who became a nun, and the castle's always, the legend has always gone on. We have evidence of her, photographic evidence, that I've actually brought with me. It was taken in 1949 with infrared film. But a recent experience I had myself, I've worked there nearly 6 years, and I was walking up we open up the rooms individually each morning. This was about 9:15 in the morning. I'd opened up one room we called the Tamworth Story, but I'd originally been 4 bedrooms. And as I opened the door, walked inside, I had sand thrown in my face, and I thought something was coming from the ceiling, because it's a very old building. And as soon as I could look up, and down my clothes, I expected to see sand. It wasn't there. And I looked in front of me, and there was like a cloud of smoke, about 6 foot high, 3 foot wide, and it moved towards the light of the window.
What was it?
Don't know.
What do you think it was?
It didn't. Well, I was trying to rationalise it.
Were you scared?
By the time I'd actually rationalised what it was,
what it could be,
it had disappeared. It lasted about 10.
So what do you think it is in retrospect?
I'm not really sure. I think
What
it
do you
was
want it to be?
something.
What do you want it to be? You want it to be a ghost, don't you?
I don't think we're meant to see them.
You want it to be a ghost.
Well, I work
You're
at the
Tamworth
same
Castle,
castle.
yes.
Yes, I did. And I was a key holder at the time, and I was called out at 11:30. It was 24th of February, 1999. I remember it well because it was the day before my birthday. I thought, great night to spend before my birthday. And I was met by the police. We walked round. There was no evidence of a break-in. They left me there. I called the engineer, alarm engineer, who had to reset the alarms. Sometimes we were there 2 hours. I went into the reception area, read a magazine. I wasn't frightened of being on my own. I wasn't even thinking about ghosts. And about 12:30, I heard footsteps in the room above me, which is the museum manager and heritage manager's office. We often hear footsteps, and we just ignore them. We've locked up a building at night and heard the footstep and reopened it thinking we've still left visitors in. There's nobody there. So I know I sat there and I thought, oh, just ignored it, carried on reading. 10 minutes later, it sounded like a table was being moved across the floor. Now, 2 days previous, there was a table delivered there. It was a beach circular table, which didn't fit with any of the items in there because everything's dark oak or antique looking. So to humour myself, I thought, the ghosts don't like it either, they're moving it. And I sat there, I still wasn't frightened or threatened. 10 to 1, I thought, where's this engineer? Rang him, he was lost, on his way, but he was lost. And about 10 minutes later, there sounded like several people moving upstairs and still the movement of this table. I had an intense feeling, that's all I can describe it. So intense that I shouldn't be there. And at that point, I did start to get a little bit scary, as if something or someone was telling me, I'm intruding, I shouldn't be there. So with that, I moved away, I walked across the courtyard and stood at the main door because I thought, when the engineer comes, I'll hear him at the door. He came, the phone rang, I thought, this is stupid, I've got to go back to the reception area, answer the phone. The voice said, hi, it's the engineer, I'm here, I'm at the main gate. I said, I'll let you in. I opened my door, let him in, and he looked at me strangely and said, did it take you long to run down the stairs? I saw you looking out the window, I waved to you. I said, I'm sorry, I haven't been looking out the window. Which window? And it was the window to this room where all this activity was going on.
How much did you have to drink?
I had
Shirley, what's going on? Shirley?
It's great PR.
How can you explain that? How can you explain that?
You're a wonderful PR person. Can you come and work for my company, The New Humanist?
I mean, I was reading a woman's magazine. I wasn't reading a ghost story. I wasn't right. It just, how can you explain that?
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
I think there's a couple of...
I was not imagining this really did.
I think there's a
Philip, what are you on about the temperature dropping for? You've got a fixation about temperatures.
He saw at the window. How can you explain? He saw this woman at the window. Well, I was across the courtyard. I wasn't up the stairs.
Philip, do you want to ask about the temperature? He wants to know, did you feel cold?
Yeah, did you feel cold?
No. So, how did you get rid of them then?
It wasn't easy, but we managed. But I had the same problems as the gentleman over there, and unfortunately I've got a bakery, so immediately everybody's going to think, oh, a little bit of advertising. Well, I'm not worried about the advertising. I'm just pleased that this thing is now gone, or persons, or whatever they were. And the first one we had not too much trouble getting rid of, did we, Pat? But the second one was a nightmare.
Was.
And I've never been so frightened as I was all the time this thing was around. It was awful.
What did it do?
It followed me home, and it woke me in the night.
What, you saw it following you home?
No, I didn't see it or anything like that. It was just this presence, this absolute
What, you felt something?
evil, just black evil that I've never, ever felt, and I hope I never have to feel again. We're hoping that they've gone.
They've gone?
They've gone.
You just
There
said
was
it
two
followed
of
you.
them.
What were they look like?
I had one that followed me more than maybe the other one.
Right.
It's
what did
very
they-
difficult to explain.
When they followed you, what did they do? They just followed you?
No, they didn't actually. When I say follow me, they started in the shop, and eventually, over a period of time, I would go home and carry on and think to myself, lovely, I'm out of that shop. But after a few months, I began to feel that they were indoors.
Why did you say evil?
Because, well, we know who one of them was.
Who was he?
It was Jack the Ripper.
And
Now,
you
you're
call
all
me
gonna laugh
arrogant.
now.
You call me arrogant. I think there's a serious point to be
I
made
called you
here.
what?
You called somebody around here
I
called
called
me.
you arrogant.
Sorry, you called me arrogant. Sorry,
get your
I
targets right,
apologise.
Shirley.
But hold on, can I make a point? There's a very serious point to be made here. Jack the Ripper. I mean, this isn't sort of, a bit of Tamworth. This is interesting. Tim's story.
Jack the Ripper.
Why does it have to be
that
Jack
wasn't his
the
real
Ripper?
name.
Jack the Ripper perpetrated some of the most horrendous
I know.
murders that we have ever seen. Can we please afford those women the dignity in death that they did not have in life? I don't think Jack the Ripper. This is not something to play with. This actually happened. I think this
Oh,
is.
she's not. Hang on. Shirley, you're getting a bit emotional about this, aren't you?
Yeah.
This
I
is
think
a
there's an
bit.
important point to be made
Nobody's reflecting upon any of the dignity of people who've been murdered by
I
Jack
think
the
you
Ripper.
are. I mean, it
But,
becomes
I
sort
don't
of
think she
ghost
is.
tourism.
She is genuinely saying she thinks. Now,
Why on earth do you
you
think
better
it's Jack the
explain
Ripper?
how
Yeah,
you thought he was
exactly.
Jack the Ripper.
Okay.
Well, this is where Pat comes into this part of it,
Oh, so
because
Pat
you are
decided
the
it was
medium.
Jack the Ripper.
Well, no, actually, I have to make a couple of points clear first.
Very quickly. You've only got
Very
2
quickly.
seconds.
A, I'm not rich, so I have to work in the city for my living. B, I'm not deluded. I'm one of the most sensible people. you'll
Pat,
ever
get
meet.
on with Jack the Ripper.
Right. Her daughter, Lydia's
Give us
daughter.
a life history if you let her, wouldn't she?
She had got a Western dress.
Come
Lydia's-
on, no, she didn't.
Shush.
Go on.
Lydia's daughter works in the company I work for. And I went to see her one day and I was talking to her and I said, Michelle, your mother's not very happy. I'll cut the story short. Lydia came to me for a private reading. Halfway through the reading, I decided I'm going to have to go and visit her bakery. I went in. As I was entering, I felt something by my left shoulder. I didn't like what I felt, but I went in. And I'm not going... Reverend Fanshawe will know exactly what, will understand. The best way for me to get to the person inside the bakery, I went into a trance. And he came through, and Lydia actually has a videotape of it, of this guy talking.
Of you thought the Jack the Ripper?
No. At the time, we didn't have any information like that.
Yeah.
At that time...
But how did you decide it was Jack the Ripper?
Anyway,
then?
I gave Lydia a lot of information, which she...
What you got
and
from
her
being in a
husband,
trance? Yeah.
Which she and her husband went and researched in the library.
And you found that it was
And
corroborated
there
it was this
wasn't
person.
one person in the bakery, but 2. They were homosexual paedophiles.
Oh,
sorry, didn't know you had friends like that. They were homosexuals, paedophiles.
I have homosexual
They
friends. Why
actually
does that?
told. They
Why does that
actually
equate to
told
being
us.
a paedophile? Did I
Nothing.
miss something?
I don't know what's going on with you two.
They didn't
Pack
say,
it in.
They didn't say anything
Yeah.
about the Ripper at the time.
But when Lydia did the research, and she and her husband spent weeks doing the research,
That's
it
what
all
you
came
said.
back
What's
to
the matter,
one
Philip?
man.
What's the matter?
Well,
No, turn around for me so I can see it.
I'm an amateur criminologist as well. Now, obviously, I've done a lot of research about Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper is a name that was perpetuated by a hoaxer as a member of the London press.
We know the guy's name, but I'm not going to give it to you.
Montague Druitt.
I collided with a girl.
Hang on, I've got to deal with this.
It wasn't Montague Druitt.
Montague John Druitt.
Rubbish. Rubbish.
Who are we talking about now? Who Jack the Ripper was?
Yeah.
Oh, right. David, do you know who it was?
I don't know who Jack the Ripper was, but I do actually agree that there is a serious point here.
So what are you saying? Some people are making... Yeah, but we're not saying Jack the Ripper. We're not saying...
And
okay.
they are playing with the lives of
Lionel, we don't want to play with anybody's lives, do we? How do you get rid of these things if they're evil?
Thinking over two or three exorcisms very quickly that I've been involved with myself. The normal traditional exorcism is to sprinkle holy water, is to say prayers of exorcism, and then there are two types really in which you request an earthbound spirit if it's unhappy to go back to where it should be or to go on where it should be. If it's something which appears to be evil or at least mischievous and is making people miserable, you get a little more heavy-handed with it and tell it to go.
And how do you do that? How do you do that then?
Just tell it to be gone. I was doing one of these in the haunted Odeon at Bristol, which is another long story we can't go into this morning. But the presence there was actually attacking the man who thought he'd seen it. He was curled up at my feet on the floor, a medium who claimed she could see it. I can't see it, I'm just an investigator. And she said, Lionel, it's there. So I sprinkled holy water in the direction that the medium, I felt like the blind swordsman in the video, was sprinkling the holy water in the direction the medium directed. And used the prayer of St. Columba, which when he saved a fisherman from the Loch Ness Monster said, touch not thou that man.
And is that the prayer? The entire prayer?
That's the one that St. Columba used.
So, Father, this is... I mean, now we're going to have to believe in another faith. Instead of believing in these ghosts, and particularly evil ghosts, now we believe in the faith that holy water and prayer can actually get rid of the evil?
I believe that we have a mysterious psychic universe.
And she's just as angry with you as she was with Mrs. Jack I prefer the holy water. Oh, who knows whether it goes? I don't know. I'm kind of one of these skeptics that actually want the evidence and the proof. I'm really boring because I believe in science. I only believe in things I can touch, feel, hear, see and all the rest of it. But OK, it might be really lovely to have ghosts. I hope they are, so long as they're nice, charming, beneficial ones. Take care of yourselves.
If you'd like to join Robert in a programme about have-a-go heroes or another on sex after 50, then call now on 08705 100 771. Did you fight back against a criminal taking your property? Is the law too supportive of the criminal? If you saw a crime being committed, is it your duty to intervene, or should fighting crime be left to the police? Or have you committed crimes and would now like to warn people not to risk fighting back? Call 2 if you think trying to be a hero is a mistake. Secondly, are you in your 50s or 60s and still enjoy an active sex life? Has sex in your relationship improved with age or has it gone downhill?